My sister texted me, "We sold the family beach house for $5 million. Thank you for being abroad." There are moments in life that split you into two, moments that divide your existence into a before and an after. For me, that moment came at 3 in the morning, when the glow of my phone illuminated the darkness of my small apartment in Toronto. Outside, the snow was falling with that deceptive calm of the Canadian winter, but inside me, a hurricane was about to break loose. My sister Valentina's message shone on the screen like a sentence. "We sold the family beach house for $5 million. Thank you for being abroad." I read those words once, twice, 3 times. My brain refused to process them. We sold? Thank you for being abroad. What did that mean? I felt the air grow thick, the walls of my room closing in on me like the jaws of a hungry beast. My name is Carolina. I am 34 years old, and until that moment I thought I knew my family. I believed fraternal love was unbreakable. I believed blood was thicker than any ambition. I was wrong, terribly wrong. This is my story. The story of how my own sister stole my inheritance, my past, and for a time my faith in humanity. But it is also the story of how I found the strength to get up, fight, and discover that true family doesn't always share your blood. To understand the weight of that betrayal, I need to take you to the beginning. I need to tell you about the Blue House, as we affectionately called it. It was a 300 square meter property facing the sea on the coast of Oaxaca, Mexico. My grandfather Ernesto built it with his own hands 60 years ago, when that area was nothing more than a forgotten paradise where the waves whispered secrets to the sand. I remember perfectly the first time I set foot in that house. I was 5 years old, and my father carried me on his shoulders as we crossed the hand-carved wooden portal that my grandfather had sculpted for months. The smell of sea salt mixed with the scent of the bougainvillea garden that my grandmother cultivated with religious devotion. It was like entering another world, a world where time stopped and worries dissolved with each wave that kissed the shore. The Blue House was more than a property. It was a living museum of our family history. Photographs of 4 generations hung on their walls. My great-grandfather with his wide-brimmed hat, my grandparents at their wedding, my parents young and in love, Valentina and me building sandcastles. Every room held a treasure of memories. The room where my grandmother taught me to make tamales. The terrace where my father explained the constellations to me. The garden swing, where I received my first kiss at 15. When my grandparents passed away, they left the house with a clear condition written in the will. This property must remain in the family. It must never be sold. It is the legacy of the Mendoza family for future generations. My father respected that wish, as if it were a sacred commandment. Every summer, without fail, we would pack the car and drive the 800 kilometers from Mexico City to Oaxaca. Those were the happiest days of my childhood. But life has a cruel way of changing things. 8 years ago, my parents died in a traffic accident. A drunk driver crossed their path one December night, and in an instant Valentina and I were left orphans. The pain was devastating. For months I felt like a ship adrift, with no anchor or direction. The only certainty I had was Blue House. As long as it existed, some of my parents would remain alive. My parents will be clear. The property passed to the 2 of us in equal shares, with the same condition our grandparents had established. It was not to be sold. It was our refuge, our sanctuary, the golden thread connecting us to all those who had loved us before. 2 years after the accident, I received a job offer that would change my life. A technology company in Toronto offered me a position as director of software development. The salary was 3 times what I earned in Mexico. The growth opportunities were endless, but accepting meant leaving everything behind. My country, my friends, my memories, and above all, my sister. Valentina was 28 years old then. She was the younger sister, the spoiled one, the one who always got what she wanted with a smile and a flutter of eyelashes. Since we were girls, our dynamic had been clear. I was the responsible one, the one who studied, the one who followed the rules. She was the creative one, the dreamer, the one who lived in the moment without worrying about tomorrow. Our differences complemented us, or at least that's what I believed. When I told her about the job offer, her reaction surprised me. I expected her to ask me to stay, to cry, to make me feel guilty for abandoning her. Instead, she smiled with a strange glint in her eyes. "You have to go, Carolina. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. I'll take care of everything here. The city house, The blue house, the taxes, everything. You just worry about succeeding over there. I should have seen the signs. I should have noticed that her enthusiasm was too convenient. But I was overwhelmed by the decision, by the grief I still carried, by the fear of starting over in a foreign country. So, I accepted her offer with gratitude. I gave her broad power of attorney so she could handle our legal affairs in my absence. I signed the papers without reading them carefully, blindly trusting that my own blood would never betray me. How naive I was. The first years in Canada were difficult. The language, the weather, the loneliness. I worked 14 hours a day to prove my worth. My only connections to Mexico were the weekly video calls with Valentina and the photos she sent me of the blue house. Everything is perfect, she assured me every time I asked. I hired a gardener to take care of the bougainvillea cyps. The roof needed some minor repairs. But it's fixed now. Don't worry about anything, little sister. You focus on your career. And I believed her. I sent her money every month for the property's maintenance, for taxes, for any unexpected expenses. I never asked for receipts or proof. She was my sister. Why would I distrust her? Over time, I managed to settle in. My work began to bear fruit. I got promotions, recognition, a salary that allowed me to live comfortably. I even found love. His name was Daniel, a Canadian architect with green eyes and an easy smile who made me feel that perhaps, just perhaps, I could build a new life without forgetting the old one. I told him so much about the blue house that he himself began to dream of it. "We have to go," he would say. "I want to know that magical place you talk about so much. I want to walk on the beach where you learned to swim, sit on the terrace where you watched the stars with your father." Every year we planned the trip, and every year something prevented it. An urgent work project, a family emergency for Daniel, the pandemic that paralyzed the entire world. There was always an excuse, and Valentina always reassured me. "There's no rush, Carolina. The house isn't going anywhere. It will be here waiting for you when you're ready." Lies. They were all lies wrapped in the gift paper of fraternal affection. The night I received that message, it had been exactly 6 years since I had set foot in Mexico. 6 years of blind trust. 6 years of ignoring the small inconsistencies that now in retrospect shone like alarm signals. I tried to call Valentina immediately, but her phone was busy. I sent her messages that went unanswered. The hours passed and my desperation grew. Daniel found me at 6 in the morning sitting on the kitchen floor, hugging my knees, rocking myself like a scared child. "What happened? Carolina, you're scaring me. What happened?" I showed him the message. His eyes widened in disbelief. "It must be a mistake, a misunderstanding. Your sister wouldn't do something like that." But I knew Valentina. I knew that tone in her message, that mix of mockery and triumph. It wasn't a mistake. It was exactly what it seemed. I took the first flight to Mexico City that same afternoon. During the 5-hour journey, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions: rage, disbelief, pain, denial. Images of the blue house paraded through my memory like a movie someone was erasing frame by frame. I arrived in Mexico at 11 at night. The airport smelled of tacos and nostalgia. I took a taxi straight to Valentina's apartment in the Roma neighborhood, that elegant place she had always wanted but could never afford. Now I understood how she had gotten it. I rang the bell with the force of someone wanting to knock down walls. Once, twice, 10 times. Finally the door opened and there she was, my sister, my blood, my traitor. She looked different, thinner, more polished, with that air of satisfaction that cats have after eating the canary. Her hair was now platinum blonde, her nails perfectly manicured, her clothes clearly designer, all paid for with my inheritance. "Well, you came faster than I expected," she said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Do you want to come in? I have French wine. The good kind." I entered without answering. The apartment was luxurious, decorated with an exquisite taste that Valentina had never shown before. Above the fireplace, framed like a trophy, was a photograph of the blue house. My house, our house, the house that no longer existed for us. "How could you?" My voice came out as a broken whisper. "How could you do this?" Valentina poured herself a glass of wine with infuriating calm. "Do what, exactly? Sell a property that was abandoned? Make a profit from something you didn't even visit? Please, Carolina, Don't be dramatic. It was our inheritance. Both of ours. The will clearly state it shouldn't be sold. How did you manage to do it without my signature? Valentina's laugh was like broken glass. Oh, little sister, you're so smart with numbers and so stupid about everything else. Remember that power of attorney you signed 6 years ago? The one you were in such a hurry to sign before leaving for your glamorous new life in Canada. Well, it turns out it was a little broader than you thought. I felt the floor open beneath my feet. You gave me absolute power over all our shared assets, including the authority to sell. The notary was very kind in explaining all the possibilities to me. That's illegal. Our parents' will. The will expressed a wish, not a legally binding prohibition. My lawyer confirmed it. If both heirs agreed, the sale was perfectly valid. And thanks to your signature, technically we both agreed. Tears began to fall down my cheeks without me being able to stop them. Why? Valentina, why? It was our history, our memories, everything we had left of Mom and Dad. For the first time, I saw something resembling genuine emotion cross my sister's face, but it wasn't remorse. It was resentment. Our history? Don't make me laugh. It was your history, Carolina. You were my favorite. You were the one who always did everything right. You were the one Dad took to see the stars while I was left alone. You were the one Grandma taught to cook while I was ignored. The blue house was always yours. I was just the little sister who got in the way. That's not true. I loved you. I love you. You love me? Is that why you left to the other side of the world without looking back? Is that why you left me alone handling everything while you built your perfect life with your perfect job and your perfect boyfriend? You abandoned me, Carolina, just like everyone else. The silence between us was so heavy I could feel it crushing my chest. I had as much right to that house as you did, Valentina continued. More, I'd say, because I was the one who took care of it all these years while you couldn't even be bothered to visit, so I took what was mine. The $5 million was split equally. Your share is in a bank account waiting for you. $2,500,000. You should thank me. I don't want the money. I want a house. I want my sister. I want my family. Valentina finished her glass of wine and looked at me with a coldness I had never seen in her before. The house has new owners, a businessman from Monterey who is going to turn it into a boutique hotel, and as for your family, you lost it a long time ago, Carolina. You were just too busy to notice. I left that apartment like a ghost. I don't remember how I got to the hotel. I don't remember checking in or going up to the room. The only thing I remember is the dawn coming through the window while I remained sitting in the same spot where I had collapsed hours before. Daniel called me 17 times that night. When I finally answered, my voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. It's true. It's all true. She sold it. She's gone. There's nothing to be done. The next day, I consulted with 3 different lawyers. They all told me the same thing. Technically, the sale was legal. The power of attorney I had signed was broad enough to include the disposal of real estate. My parents' will, although morally binding, did not have the legal force to prevent a sale if both heirs consented, and according to the documents, I had consented. I could try to claim fraud, the 3rd lawyer told me, an older man with tired eyes who seemed to have seen too many family tragedies. But it would be a long, costly process with little chance of success. Your sister was very careful. Careful. That was one way to put it. Another way would be methodical, calculating, ruthless. I decided to make one last attempt. I traveled to Owaka, an 8-hour bus ride because I needed time to prepare myself mentally. When the vehicle stopped at the terminal, my legs were trembling so much I could barely walk. I took a taxi to the beach. The road was exactly as I remembered, the winding highway between green hills, the smell of the sea intensifying with every kilometer, the sound of the waves heard before seeing them. But when we arrived at the address I had given so many times throughout my life, I found something that tore my soul from my body. The blue house no longer existed. In its place was a skeleton of concrete and steel rods. The new owners had begun demolition. The hand-carved wooden portal my grandfather had sculpted was thrown in a corner, split in half. The bougainvillea garden had been razed. The swing where I received my first kiss was now a pile of rusty metal waiting to be taken to the trash. I fell to my knees in the sand. The cry that came from my chest was primitive, animal, the lament of someone who has lost something they will never be able to recover. A worker came over to ask me if I was okay. I couldn't answer him. How do you explain to a stranger that you are witnessing the death of your childhood? I spent 3 hours on that beach. I watched as the machines continued to devour the remains of my history. Every wall that fell was a memory fading. The room where my grandmother taught me to cook, the terrace where my father showed me the stars, the bedroom where my parents fell asleep in each other's arms after long walks along the shoreline. Everything was gone. Everything. I returned to Canada a week later. Daniel was waiting for me at the airport with flowers and an expression of concern that broke my heart. This good man truly loved me, and I had nothing to offer him but broken pieces. The following months were the darkest of my life. I functioned on autopilot. I went to work, fulfilled my responsibilities, went home, got into bed. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I didn't feel. It was as if an essential part of me had died along with the Blue House. Daniel tried everything to pull me out of that pit. He cooked my favorite meals. He took me for walks by Lake Ontario. He suggested therapy, support groups, and meditation. I would nod mechanically and keep sinking. One night, I heard him talking on the phone with his mother. "I don't know what to do, Mom. I'm losing her. It's like she's not even here anymore. The woman I fell in love with is gone, and I don't know how to bring her back." Those words pierced me like a knife. I was so absorbed in my pain that I hadn't noticed the damage I was causing to the only person still by my side. Daniel hadn't abandoned me. Daniel had chosen to stay, and I was punishing him for my sister's sins. That night, for the first time in months, I allowed myself to think clearly. Yes, I had lost the Blue House. Yes, my sister had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Yes, a part of my past had been erased forever, but I was still alive. I still had the ability to choose what to do with my present and my future. I could let myself be consumed by bitterness and lose everything I had left, or I could honor my parents' memory in the only way that really mattered, living a full life, building my own family, creating new memories that would one day be the legacy for my children. The next day, I signed up for therapy. It was the first step on a long road of reconstruction. Therapy helped me understand many things I had been avoiding. My relationship with Valentina had always had cracks that I refused to see. Since we were girls, we had competed for our parents' attention in ways neither of us acknowledged. I took refuge in academic achievements. She sought to be the center of attention with her vibrant personality. When our parents died, each of us processed the grief differently. I escaped to the other side of the world. She remained trapped in a resentment that grew like a tumor. None of this justified what she did, but understanding it helped me let go of the rage that was poisoning me. I also realized that my idealization of the Blue House was, in part, a way to avoid the present. If I could take refuge in memories of the past, I didn't have to face the difficulties of the now. The property had become a symbol of a simpler, safer time, a time when my parents were still alive and the world made sense. But that time was over, and no house, no matter how beautiful, could revive it. 1 year after the betrayal, I made a decision that surprised everyone. I accepted the money from the sale, not because I forgave Valentina, or because I agreed with what she did. I accepted it because rejecting it wasn't going to give me back the house. I accepted it because that money represented years of my grandparents' and parents' work. I accepted it because I could use it to build something new. With my share of the sale, Daniel and I bought a small cabin by a lake on the outskirts of Toronto. It wasn't by the sea. It didn't have bougainvilleas or hand-carved portals, but it had a garden where I planted rose bushes, a terrace where I watched the stars with Daniel, and a room we were preparing for our first child. Because yes, 2 years after losing the Blue House, I discovered I was pregnant. When I saw the 2 lines on the test, I cried for hours. But this time, the tears were of hope. My son was born on a spring. I named him Ernesto, like my grandfather. He had my father's dark eyes and my mother's smile. When I held him for the first time, I felt the universe was giving me a second chance. With Ernesto came a clarity I hadn't experienced before. I understood that the Blue House was never just a building. It was a symbol of what my family represented: love, sacrifice, tradition, connection. Those things couldn't be sold or demolished. They existed in my heart, in my memories, in the stories I would one day tell my son. The first time I took Ernesto to the lake, he was 6 months old. I sat him on my lap and let his little feet touch the cold water. His laugh was identical to mine when I was a child, and my father taught me to swim in the Sea of Okaka. "This is our story now," I whispered to him. "Different from mine, but just as valuable." Daniel watched us from the shore, with that smile that reminded me why I had chosen him. This man who never knew the blue house but had helped build something just as beautiful. This man who loved me not for what I had been, but for who I was becoming. 5 years passed before I heard from Valentina again. 5 years of complete silence. I had blocked her number, deleted her social media, erased any trace of her existence from my life. It was easier that way. Safer. The message arrived on a Tuesday afternoon from an unknown number. "Carolina, it's Valentina. Please, I need to talk to you. It's urgent." My first instinct was to ignore it. My second instinct was to block it. But something stopped me. Perhaps it was the word urgent. Perhaps it was that premonition that only sisters share, that invisible thread that not even the worst betrayal can completely cut. I waited 3 days before responding. When I did, my message was brief. "What do you want?" Her response came instantly, as if she had been waiting with the phone in her hand. "I have cancer. Stage 3. I need to see you before it's too late." I don't know what I expected to feel when reading those words. Perhaps satisfaction, that cruel karma that part of me had wished for in my darkest moments. Perhaps indifference, the armor I had built to protect myself from anything related to her. But what I felt was something completely different. I felt fear. Fear of losing her before understanding why she had done what she did. Fear of her dying with all the secrets she never shared. Fear of my son growing up without knowing he had an aunt, no matter how imperfect she was. I flew to Mexico a week later. Valentina was waiting for me in the same apartment in the Roma neighborhood, but everything had changed. The designer furniture had disappeared. The once impeccable walls showed signs of neglect, and my sister, the woman who had always prided herself on her appearance, looked like a ghost of herself. Pancreatic cancer is particularly cruel. It had devoured her muscles, dimmed the sparkle in her eyes, turned her platinum blonde hair into sparse gray strands. But when she saw me enter, she smiled with a genuineness I hadn't seen in decades. "You came. I wasn't sure you would." I wasn't sure either. We sat facing each other in a silence that lasted several minutes. There was so much to say, and so little time to say it. "I spent it all," Valentina finally began. "The money from the house. Every penny. On clothes, trips, men who never loved me, on a life that was never mine. I thought if I had enough things I would stop feeling empty. I was wrong. I didn't respond. I didn't know how. The diagnosis came 8 months ago. At first I thought it was a mistake. I never got sick. I was the strong one, the survivor. But cancer doesn't understand plans or pride. Cancer simply takes what it wants." Her eyes filled with tears. "I've thought a lot about what I did to you, Carolina. About the blue house. About everything. For years I convinced myself I was right, that you owed me something, that I was collecting an outstanding debt. But the truth is, I was jealous. I was always jealous of you." "Jealous of me? Valentina, you were the pretty one, the charismatic one, the one who got everything with a smile. And you were the beloved one, the one Dad looked at with pride, the one Mom showed off to her friends, the one the grandparents wanted to inherit the blue house. I was an accident, a mistake, the baby that came when no one expected it. I spent my whole life trying to prove I deserved to exist, and I never did. For the first time, I saw my sister not as the villain of my story, but as a frightened girl who never felt enough. That didn't excuse her actions, but it explained them in a way I could finally understand. "I stole the blue house from you because it was the only thing you cared about more than me," she continued. "I wanted you to feel a fraction of the pain I had felt all my life. I wanted you to know what it was like to lose something irreplaceable." "You succeeded," I said with a broken voice. "You destroyed me, Valentina. It took me years to rebuild myself." "I know, and there's nothing I can do to make up for it. I'm not asking for forgiveness, because I know I don't deserve it. I just ask you one thing. Don't let your hatred of me poison the rest of your life. Don't let my mistake define your story. You're better than that, Carolina. You always were." We stayed in silence as the sun set over Mexico City. The woman in front of me was no longer my enemy. She was my sister, the same girl I had shared a room with for 18 years. the same teenager with whom I had cried over our grandparents' death, the same young woman with whom I had buried our parents. I have a son, I finally said. His name is Ernesto, like our grandfather. He's 5 years old and has Dad's eyes. Valentina's face lit up with something like hope. Can I see a picture? I showed her my phone. Hundreds of images of Ernesto, his first day of school, his first soccer goal, his face covered in cake on his last birthday. Valentina looked at them with a mixture of joy and pain. He's beautiful. You have everything you ever wanted, Carolina. A family, a home, a purpose. I never had any of that. It's never too late to start. For me it is. The doctors give me 6 months, maybe less. Tears were now streaming down both our faces. There's something I want to give you, Valentina said, getting up with difficulty. Wait for me here. She returned minutes later with a wooden box I immediately recognized. It was the box where my grandmother kept her recipes, the same one that had disappeared from the blue house before the sale. I took it out before the new owners arrived. I couldn't let strangers keep it. Inside the box were the treasures I thought lost forever. My grandmother's handwritten recipes, photographs of my parents. I didn't have anywhere else. The pearl necklace my mother wore on her wedding day, a lock of hair from my first haircut, objects that had no monetary value but were worth more than any house. Why? I asked, holding the box as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Because whether you believe it or not, I never stopped loving you. I was furious with you, resentful, poisoned by jealousy I never overcame. But you were my sister. You still are. I stayed in Mexico for 2 weeks. Every day I visited Valentina in her rundown apartment. We talked about our childhood, our parents, all the misunderstandings that had grown like weeds between us. It wasn't perfectly reconciliation. The pain she had caused me couldn't be erased with conversations or boxes of memories. But it was the beginning, a closure, a farewell. When it was time to return to Canada, we hugged at the door of her apartment. Her body was so fragile I feared I would break her with the strength of my embrace. Take care of my nephew, she whispered in my ear. Tell him stories of the blue house. Don't let him forget where he comes from. I promise. And Carolina, forgive me. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday when you're ready, forgive me. I didn't respond. I couldn't make a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. Valentina died 4 months later, alone in a Mexico City hospital, on a November dawn that probably smelled of marigolds due to the proximity of the Day of the Dead. I couldn't be there. A canceled flight, a snowstorm, the cruelty of fate that always seems to intervene at the worst moments. But I spoke to her on the phone 2 hours before the end. Her voice was barely a whisper, but her words were clear. I'm seeing Mom, Carolina, and Dad. They're here waiting for me. They tell me it's okay, that everything is going to be okay. I love you, Valentina. In spite of everything, I love you. I know. I always knew, that was the worst part, that you loved me so much, and I never knew how to return that love. Those were the last words we exchanged. I had her cremated according to her instructions and scattered her ashes on the Awaka beach, a few meters from where the blue house once stood. The boutique hotel was finished, a modern and elegant building that held no trace of what had existed before, but the sea was still the same. The waves still whispered the same secrets to the sand, and somewhere in that blue immensity, my sister finally found the peace she never had in life. 3 years have passed since then. Ernesto is now 8 years old and is the living image of our father. Daniel and I had a daughter, a girl with light eyes, whom we named Valentina. Yes, Valentina. Not as an absolute forgiveness, but as an acknowledgement that people are more complex than our resentments allow us to see. Every summer we take the children to the cabin by the lake. I tell them stories of the blue house, of their great-grandparents who built it with their own hands, of the bougainvilleas that grew to the sky, of the swing where their mother received her first kiss. Ernesto's eyes shine with every tale, imagining a place he will never know but that lives in his blood. Last year, Daniel and I made an important decision. We used what was left of the sale money to buy a small plot of land on the Oaxacan coast. We hired a local architect to design a modest cabin, 50 square meters, with a small garden where the first bougainvilleas are already growing. It's not a replacement for what I lost. Nothing could be, but it's a new beginning. A place where my children will create their own memories, where they will one day bring their own children, where the Mendoza family history will continue to be written, albeit with different ink. Above the front door, we hung a hand-carved wooden sign that Daniel made with his own hands. It simply says, "New Blue House." Have I forgiven Valentina? I don't know if forgive is the right word. Forgiveness implies the pain disappears, and mine is still there, lurking in the corners of my heart, like a wounded animal. But I have learned to live with it. I have learned that carrying resentment is like drinking poison, hoping the other person dies. I have learned that family is not always perfect, that love is not always enough, and that sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who need us the most. When my daughter Valentina asks me why she has that name, I tell her a softened version of the story. I tell her she had an aunt who made many mistakes, but who in the end found a way to ask for forgiveness. I tell her families are complicated, that hurt people and sometimes hurt others, but that true love always finds its way back. And every night, before she sleeps, I whisper in her ear the same phrase my mother used to say to me when I was a child. No matter what happens, you will always have a home, not in a place but here, and I point to my heart. Because that is the most important lesson I learned from all this tragedy. The Blue House was never a 300 square meters building by the sea. It was a feeling. It was the certainty of belonging to something bigger than oneself. It was the promise that, no matter how far away you were, there would always be a place where you would be welcomed with open arms. And that, no treacherous sister, no fraudulent sale, no Monterey businessman can ever take away from you. If you are reading this and have experienced a similar betrayal, I want you to know you are not alone. The pain you feel is real and valid. The rage consuming you has reason to exist. But I also want you to know there is life after betrayal. That the deepest wounds can become scars that tell stories of survival. That losing something you love can open your eyes to blessings you didn't know you had. My sister stole a house from me, but she couldn't steal the memories I keep in my heart. She couldn't steal my ability to love and be loved. She couldn't steal the opportunity to build my own story, with my own hands on my own terms. The Blue House no longer exists. But every time I see my children running toward the lake with their arms outstretched like bird wings, every time Daniel hugs me as the sun sets over the water, every time I open my grandmother's box and smell the yellowed paper of her recipes, I know that what is essential remains. Love remains. Memories remain. Family, in its purest and truest form, remains. And that, in the end, is all that matters. Thank you for accompanying me to this story. If you identified with it, if it made you cry or reflect or hug someone you love, then it has fulfilled its purpose. Families are imperfect. People fail. But as long as we keep trying to understand each other, as long as we keep seeking love even in the darkest places, there will be hope. There will always be hope.